Guilty of murder. 3 words Lynette Dawson's courageous family have waited more than 40 years to hear. The disappearance of the doting mother in January 1982 resulted in one of the most confounding mysteries we've ever seen. A complex and compelling case that transfixed millions around the world. Tonight, convicted killer Chris Dawson waits to be sentenced for his crime, but knowing he's likely to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Chris, do you have anything to say?
Get out of our way, please.
The ugly chaos of that last fateful day at court marked the final hours of freedom for killer Chris Dawson. For 4 decades, he'd stuck to the story that his wife Lynette had walked out on their marriage and deliberately abandoned their 2 young daughters. But it was all a grotesque fabrication. Lynn was already dead, and he had murdered her.
Christopher Michael Dawson on the charge that on or about 8 January 1982 at Bayview, you did murder Lynette Dawson. I find you guilty. You may sit down.
Intend this morning to dig with the possibility of a body being buried in this area.
In the end, despite exhaustive searches, the evidence was purely circumstantial. There was no body, no direct proof. Instead, it was the 74-year-old's litany of lies that brought him undone.
It's been hard not having a mum. There's parts of you that feel rejected or unlovable. You know, if your mother can leave you, then you must be pretty awful.
In 2018, Lynn's daughter Chanel spoke to 60 Minutes about the trauma of growing up without her mum.
I remember looking out the front door, probably waiting for her to come back.
Is that at your home in Bayview?
Yeah.
You were 4.5.
No, it breaks my heart to think of my sister and I. It's such a young age losing our mum.
Lynette and Chris Dawson had been childhood sweethearts. She, the gentle nurse, he, the handsome footballer. In a 1975 documentary, Lynn told of life with her famous husband.
I hadn't put any thought about sharing him until somebody a couple of years ago said, what is it like sharing a husband? And to me, it just seemed so silly.
Those words now seem chillingly prophetic. Chris Dawson will go on to groom one of his own students for sex. A troubled teen known throughout the trial as JC. She was another victim of his twisted manipulation. Within days of murdering his wife in January 1982, he moved the schoolgirl into the marital bed, installing her as replacement mother to Lynn's kids.
It's a beautiful place for such a dark story, isn't it?
It is. Less than a mile from here. Lynn Dawson murdered, almost certainly, in my view, in cold blood.
When I first spoke with him 4 years ago, journalist Hedley Thomas was in the midst of identifying the glaring inconsistencies in Chris Dawson's story. Clues that police failed to follow up in the early years of the investigation.
As I went through the case, I realised there'd been these misunderstandings, missed opportunities, evidence that hadn't been properly considered, witnesses who hadn't been contacted.
Would you say the police failed Lynn Dawson?
Yes, they did.
Hedley breathed life into the case, uncovering a trove of new information in his podcast, The Teacher's Pet, that captivated millions of people across the world.
What do you think of Chris as a person?
I think he's a despicable person. I think he's severely narcissistic. I think that he's dangerous. I think that he is lying to himself, lying to his daughters, his friends, his family, and has been for a long time.
But all I know was she'd gone. He said right from word go she wasn't coming back. Lynn's gone, she's not coming back. That's just what he said.
Chris Dawson has never altered his warped version of events, lying point blank to his own daughter in their last ever conversation in 2018. Have you asked him about all of this?
Our last discussion was more just, him declaring again that he's never hurt my mum and he doesn't know where she is. And
So he looked you in the eye and said, I never hurt your mother.
yeah,
Did you believe him?
I wanted to.
Which is not a yes and which is not a no.
He's very convincing and I love him, you know.
4 years on, we know the awful truth. The unflinching conviction of Lynn's family, of police and journalist Hedley Thomas, borne out by the verdict delivered this week.
Let's remember it's taken 40 years for this to happen. Chris Dawson should have been charged 40 years ago.
With an appeal expected, this extraordinary saga isn't quite over yet. A despicable crime with no winners, and one critical question that remains to be answered.
We still need to bring her home. We would ask Chris Dawson to find it in himself to finally do the decent thing and allow us to bring Lynn home to a peaceful rest.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes, segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.